Is your favorite distillery's limited edition offering worth it? And then Chad talks.
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Is your favorite distillery's limited edition offering worth it?
Let's talk through it and find out.
It's Bourbon Night. We're just a couple of Chads.
Yep.
This is episode number 3. Sarah and I started this series back in the day. We've done 2 episodes, so if you want to check them out, they're linked over Chad's face, probably. We've got 4 more. Those other episodes, we did 5. Went a little long. And of course, these are our opinions based on our palate. So, you know, disclaimer. Which may vary, and we will tell you that for sure.
Yep.
Also, there's chapter marks if you want to bounce around to a particular distillery. You can do that, chapter marks down below. But, Chad, let's get started with Four Roses Distillery.
Let's do it. So, Four Roses small batch, barrel strength, limited edition. I think it's the full name. Yes, that is the full name.
Just got to get it in the right order.
Yeah. So, Chad, these are a yearly release from Four Roses. It is a blend of different age statements, a blend of different mash bills, and it's always, of course, barrel strength, as the name denotes.
That's right. If this is your first episode, by the way, for this series, we ask 4 questions. Let's go ahead and toss those up there.
Yep.
Is it worth the retail? We will answer that. Do we agree with how it's positioned? Maybe we think a different expression from the distillery should be what they put as their most coveted LE or not. Is this the bottle to seek out from the distillery? And if not, what is? So let's start hitting this. I definitely agree that, I mean, it is the LE.
It is
of this. I don't think it's you can really debate if there's a
no. They've done several different LEs in the past, but most of those have just been renamings of what this is or special single barrels. Which are LE, but they're not a yearly release product.
Correct. So let's take 2024's edition, because the 2025 won't come out until I think September, around then, November. So the 2024 version is 108.2 proof. It is a blend of 12 and 20 year. There's a 12, 15, 16, and 20 year in there. There was 16,000 bottles, and retail on it is $220. So Chad, the first question, is it worth retail?
I'm gonna say yes. It's one of those where 85, 90% of the time it's a hitter, and even when it's not, if you can find one, it's nice to know that you've got something that is special. Now, 16,000 bottles or whatever they launch every year sounds like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, across 50 U.S. states and overseas, that's not a lot. So when you do find one, it's a special feeling.
I was not able to get a 2024 bottle, actually. The one that we have here. Yeah, it's 2020, actually. I have some after 2020, but wasn't able to get a 2024. Yeah, I would agree. Majority of the time, it's an absolute yes. I would probably even say like 95%. I would up that. 95% of the time, it's a yes. The 2024 bottle wasn't as impressed with as previous years, and that seemed to be some other people's opinion on it as well. But is it worth $220? Most of the time, I would say yes. Of course, that price has gone up over time.
Yeah, slowly creeping.
Do we agree with how it's positioned? Yes.
Yeah, it's the LE. It's disclosed as the LE. It's released one time a year, and it's a limited number of bottles. So,
is this the bottle to seek out from the distillery? Yes, but. It's sort of like improv. You're expecting a yes and, but it's a yes, but.
Yes, but.
Do you want to talk about the but?
Yes, but. Small batch select. So I do something, and I've talked to you about this before, and I think we've even done it on the show before, is if it can't beat small batch select, which does vary, which is I think 6 to 8 or 6 to 9 years. If it can't beat this at 104 proof for $65 to $70 on the shelf, or maybe even cheaper in your markets, then I don't, have to have that. But what's great is, like I said, said a few moments ago, if I can find an LE, I'm going to take the LE. But if I cannot, I am happy knowing this is always on the shelf and it's an affordable product.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just to throw something else out there, any one of the 10 recipes in a single barrel strength is also a great one to go after. They're going to be around $100 to $130, depending on the store and how special they think their pick is.
Versus everyone else's that has 3 picks in the same city that you live in. Yeah,
exactly. So. But they can be harder to find, as we found in a Bourbon Hunting Challenge series. It was rather hard to find, but eventually, with some hard work, we did find one. All right, let's move on to the next distillery. Next up is Michter's. Now, what do we think is positioned as, because there's, you might be thinking like, hey, there's M10, M20,
M25.
celebration.
Sour Mash 25-year-old rye. They have a lot of 20s.
They do.
That you never see.
But they're not all yearly. And that's kind of what is the yearly LE.
Right.
So that's when it becomes, well, you could still argue one of the two. We talked about it beforehand and we agreed. That is the 10-year series, meaning it could be the bourbon or the rye. Yeah. We've got the bourbon here. We reviewed this on the channel actually not too long ago. So that's what we are picking as what they position as their yearly
Their
LE.
mainstay.
This is the rye, but we're going to be referring to the bourbon. So, Chad, is it worth it? Retail went up just a little bit this year.
It did.
$190 suggested retail. Is it worth it? Let me work it.
I'll put my thing down, flip it, and reverse it. Yep. I would say yes.
I would also say yes.
And as we discussed, during the review we did, if you've not watched that, please go back and look at it. Even with the price going up, the quality is there every time. Some years might be better than others, but there's never a bad one. They're always good or great. And I'd say 95% of the time, they're awesome, amazing. They're way better than great. I think you get your money's worth at $190. Now, there will be a stopping point. Like if this ever goes up to like $250, probably cut off there. I don't know that. It's hard unless they start. So because with these, where it is LE, both don't always come out every year.
Correct. That was sort of the thing of why we almost picked the other one, but we'll get to that when we say if not what is.
Right.
Actually, I love that about them. There was a year where Dan and Andrea said this year's 10 isn't ready yet.
But the other version of that is. That's what it's.
They
Bourbon
came out
or
with
the rye.
the rye that year.
Yeah.
Then the next year they came out with the 10-year bourbon, which 10 was just the youngest. Well, it's a single barrel, so that doesn't work that way. But it can be older, but put in a 10-year label.
10 years just the youngest that can go in that bottle. That's also what's great about it is, you don't know what you're getting, but if the price ever hits like $250 plus, I would love to see it's a 14-year or a 10-year or something. Just Michter's, blank line, whatever.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay, so do we agree with how it's positioned? I would say yes. There's some gray area as we'll get into, but I would say I agree with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with it. Without all the semantics, I agree where it's at.
Yeah. Is this the bottle to seek out from the distillery? I would say again, yes and.
Yeah. Yes and.
Which leads into if not, what is? Another one could be, you getting ready to give us a visual aid. the barrel strength.
Yeah, barrel strength rye, or the bourbon.
Or the bourbon, yeah.
And then they also do toasted, which those, I don't think those are released every year either. So, but the barrel strengths usually are released every year. So if you can't find a Michter's 10-year bourbon or rye, they do release the barrel strength bourbon and rye every year, either or. It's this weird thing with them, but great value. These have crept up to about $140, $150.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I typically prefer the 10-year over the barrel strengths. I think that's why we both picked this one, but there's a good argument for this coming out every year to being their every year LE.
Well, and if they don't, the viewers, some of them don't care much for the age statement. They would rather have the proof. They're non-age stated on this US 1 line, and the average is said to be around 6 to 8 years old. So I mean, if you can get a barrel strength product for $60-$70 cheaper, it might be a better buy for some people. But I love the 10 years, so I can.
Yeah. Okay, 2 down, 2 more to go, but we want to hit pause, talk about our home on the internet. It's whiskyambitions.com, and so we're going to get both of the t-shirts. This is a Rye or Die. It's got Rye or Die back there. Well, it's there. We believe you. Cast strength and unfiltered, much like this conversation gets with more bourbon. That's where you can also find our bottle cut candles, hoodies, hats, more glassware, more always coming soon at whiskyambitions.com.
And patreon.com/itsbourbonnight, where you get discounts on the merch that we are wearing right now. You get first access to barrel picks, another round. You can suggest episode ideas, and there's Q&As. Once again, that is patreon.com/itsbourbonnight.
Just get your name here with these fine people.
Yeah, those people.
Fine folks right there. Fine folks. Okay, we're going to take a little break, and we'll be right back after this. And welcome back. Thanks for sticking around.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks. I'm glad you didn't leave.
Yeah.
Next up is Old Forester Distillery. All right. I would say it's pretty hard to argue that Old Forester Birthday Bourbon is not their
mainstay.
LE. Yeah. Is it worth retail? That's the question.
And we're gonna differ on this. I know this for a fact.
Well, let me just say, retail is now $199, $200. I remember when it was $80. I remember when it was 80.
Oh, these things were cheaper when I was younger.
This used to all be farmland.
So fancy bottle, you know, the age changes, proof changes. It's proof down to taste. It's not just picked out a random thing. They taste through a bunch of stuff. I love the care and quality that goes into the birthday bourbon, and we differ every year. Because believe it or not, even though, you know, I'm not in the episodes tasting these, I still taste them. Thanks to Chad Sayre. I'm going to say I think it's worth it. That's $200 for a 12-year-old bourbon, at least. You know, coming in anywhere usually between like 91 and 105 proof. Not always 12-year, but always a good age statement on there.
Yeah, I don't think they've gone under 10.
They've had 9-year.
They've had a 9-year?
They've had a 9-year.
Blasphemy.
I keep that same argument because of Michters, but I like the profile on these. It's a lot more dusty, vintage. They're always super oaky and dry and tannic, and that is my profile. It's not your profile.
I mean, that can be my profile depending on the distillery. I think it's
Right.
what else is also there, and with me, a lot of times with Old Forester, it is a banana note that I don't love. Now, I will say this is the 2024 bottle here, right?
Right.
Yes. This one I really enjoyed.
That's
This one
vintage.
gave me new hope. This gave me episode 4.
Yeah.
So, whereas with the Four Roses, I think we said 85% yes on the LE. I'm going to say 85% no on the birthday bourbon.
Wow.
I know, because a lot of releases before this one, I was like, no, it's not for me. Now, this one, as I said, was sort of the redemption. So 85% no, you're going to say just flat out yes.
I'm just saying flat out yes.
Okay.
I mean, I was going to say, 85 to 90% yes, because of that give or take, but I'm keeping the same mindset as the Michter's. Age is usually there. Proof is not crazy, but it's drinkable, and it's perfect in balance.
I mean, yeah, on paper, I would say yes, but my history with them is where I say 85% no. Do we agree with how it's positioned? I would say yeah.
I would say yeah, with a little caveat there, just based on how their modern lineup is going. So I would say yes for the everyday consumer. Birthday bourbon is their traditional mainstay LE, but they've been launching things like Presidential and 117 series.
President's Choice.
Yes, President's Choice. Presidential's Jefferson's.
Yeah.
President's Choice and the 117 series.
Yeah, which we'll get to that in a second, not to get too ahead. Is this the bottle to seek out from the distillery? I say no. You say yes.
Yes, but.
Yes, but. Okay, it's a no and a yes, but.
Well, that's because of what I was just talking about, and we'll get more into
Right.
that here in a little bit.
Yes, which is, if not, what is? Now, here we go. I've become a big fan of the President's Choice. Although I will say, I've owned 2 bottles. One was a 10-year, and these are all single barrels, so they'll differ. 10-year single barrel, absolutely loved. We did an episode of it. I said it was one of my favorites of the year. This one is a 7-year, 82-month. Why would they do that?
Right there.
Yeah, 7. And this. Not worth it. Not worth the price at all. Completely different.
See, I remember when those were $80, and now these are how much, Chad? How much are those?
Oh, I don't know. I think they're over 200. They're up there. Yeah. But a good. I would say I have very little evidence to base this on, but I would say a higher aged President's Choice, or if you could try it before you buy it, make sure, because they are single barrels, make sure it's for you. I would say that, or. And we didn't bring one out, but
no, we should have.
Yeah, there's
we're gonna just put one right now.
Yeah, there you go. It's the 117 series.
Yeah, and which is what I was going to allude to as my, the butt for my yes, but the 117 series. While there are some, unique finishes, like they've done like rum and Scotch finishes and stuff, they have dropped 7-year bourbon, 9-year bourbon, 11-year bourbon, 9-year rye, all kinds of stuff in that 117 series, and those prices range. They started out at $55. Now they're more around 75 or 80. Kind of in that Woodford range for the 375, what they do, which makes sense for Brown Foreman.
Yes.
I've found a few of those that I really love.
Same.
And I've bought, not just 1, but 2, and a couple of maybe 3 because they're incredible values. It's hard to pass up an 11-year bourbon for like $160 at, what is it, 110 proof or something? So. Right.
Yeah. I've got 4 or 5 different expressions of the 117 series. Enough to do a fly fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
All right, we got 1 left, and let's get into it. Limestone Branch Distillery, Yellowstone. It's dusty.
It's dusty. Let me go and get that dust off your shoulders.
It's true dusty. Brush your shoulders off. This one's an easy one because it says limited edition and the year. This is the 2023 release right there. Now these are kind of like, again, I think we brought up Blood Oath maybe once in this episode, or maybe am I dreaming? I don't know. But it's sort of like the Blood Oath where the treatment of it changes every year.
Right.
For example, this one, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in Tokai casks.
Yep.
Last year's was, I wrote it down, Cognac and Brandy.
Yeah,
Cognac and Brandy. It was a 7 and 17 year bourbon. They're always 101 proof. The retail on these is $100, though. We see it consistently for $129.99.
Yeah, SRP, suggested retail price. The brand can list it as whatever they want. Distributors and stores don't have to follow that, but yes, for $100 on paper, that's great. Even $130,
unless it's an ABC state.
Unless it's ABC state,
Right,
then they have to follow the cost.
But is it worth retail? Tough.
Yeah.
$100. Okay, on paper, I say yes.
Yes, on paper, the stats are there, and you have to look at it as, and here's how I look at it. It's a limited edition. It's really usually well-aged stuff from heritage distilleries. It's at a solid proof point, 101, who doesn't love that? But then to get to that fourth point, there's always a finish involved here, and it's not always.
Well, yeah, it brings in a person's personal taste. I mean,
Right.
that's always right.
Right.
But you get I'm not always the biggest port finish fan.
Right.
So if one year it's a port finish, or if it's what's the orange curacao, then I'm out. So it'll definitely vary. So it's hard to say, since each year they have to come out with something different. Here lately, I haven't been feeling them as much.
No, it's not that they're bad. I don't want to say they're
No.
bad. They're adequately priced. Like we said, on paper, the stats are there. For an LE product, for $100, if you want to get something as a gift, something that, because it's got a year vintage on it, so it could celebrate an anniversary, a birthday.
Beautiful bottle.
It's got a nice bottle, a big step up from when it came in a tube, even though the tubes were really nice when they did those, the black tube.
Gotta love it too.
Gotta love a tube.
Yep.
But the only thing is you have to like finished product, and that's kind of the only fault I have for that. Is I would love to just see this is a blend of like this, or even if it's going back to their toasted series, or a double oaking or something, but just it shouldn't always be finished.
I agree, and especially with a bourbon distillery who hangs their hat on being a bourbon distillery, saying our best offering of the year is not a bourbon. Because
Right.
it's not when it's finished. It's a bourbon whiskey, caveat, finished in whatever it is. So it's how can that be your best? It's not bourbon. It's just an American whiskey at that point.
Right.
Finished whiskey. So, But, so is it worth retail? Yeah.
I mean,
it's very giftable, as you said.
Yeah.
But, do we agree with how it's positioned? Yeah. I think it's pretty evident.
It's their only LE.
Yes.
They have nothing else that could combat this to make you question it, like Michter's or anyone else. So
Correct. Is this the bottle to seek out from the distillery? Yes and no. I would say yes and no also, or just maybe no.
I'd say no.
Yeah, just no. We're
No.
just gonna say no.
Because
Okay, because. Go for it.
you can get a little more customized if you are a bourbon person, which are barrel selects.
That's right. So if not, what is? And that's this. What do they actually call it?
I think it's Yellowstone hand-picked collection.
Yellowstone Barrel Select.
Yeah.
I think, hand-picked collection. Right. Single barrel. This is one that we did, IBN. It's 115 proof. Now they have up to, I think, 119 proof.
Yep, 119.
And they have lower proofs as well. You get to taste all three and decide on which one comes out the best. This is excellent. This is a banger of a bottle.
And these are usually 7-ish years old too, 5 to 7 years old. And I've picked several of those in my time, and when I was working in retail, and I think every one that I did was 6.5 to 7.
Price used to be around 50. I think now they're getting up to more around 70. But still, it's not 100 or 130. Right. More likely is what you'll be charged for this guy. So I think this is more the guy to seek out from that distillery.
I agree, and it's one of those where. Also, what's fun about single barrel picks is if you find a proof point you like, store's going to have them, and it's more affordable. So then you can just kind of go around buying different picks and treat every barrel's an LE technically. So you can kind of treat every pick as an LE.
That is true. There we go. Well, that's the third episode in the books. If you want to see another one of these and have suggestions, let us know down in the comments.
Yes.
We're putting on screen here all the distilleries that we've already done, so you don't have to go and figure that out. It's not like a bouncing ball. I'm not gonna have time to do that. But they're here.
Also, never hit the corner.
Yeah, exactly. It's pong. If you can think of other ones, usually larger distilleries are easier to do, then let us know down in the comments. But that's where we better leave it. If you haven't subscribed to us already, you can do so by clicking right up here. There's suggestions of other videos down here. Hope to see you over there in one of those. And until next time, drink more bourbon.